Welcome back to Point of View, where we present all sides of a story, including yours. Tonight, the Minnesota GOP has hit a couple of roadblocks lately. The latest, they recently had to pick a new Senate Majority Leader after the Amy Koch affair scandal. Let's go to Chris Berg in the hot box now from the Chris Berg Show on AM 1100 The Flag. Chris, can the GOP themselves get back on track for this upcoming 2012 session and elections, or is it kind of spiraling downward?
Well, we're going to find that out in just a minute. With me tonight in the hot box, Minnesota State Senator Gretchen Hoffman. Gretchen, thanks for joining me this evening. Before I get to my first question, I first want to create some context for it. Look, this is the first time in 30 years that the Republicans have taken over the Senate and the House in Minnesota. Unemployment's been on a downward trend. Things have been seeming to go well. You're possibly going to have a $1 billion budget deficit. Next thing you know, $876 million surplus. It's like, hey, Republican leadership is working, and then the shoe drops. Minnesota Senate Majority Leader Amy Koch, extramarital affair with a senior staffer. Tuesday, you guys have a behind closed door meeting to elect a new Senate Majority Leader. Amy Koch is there. I'm assuming she stands up in front of your caucus and says what?
Oh, thanks for having me, Chris. It's great to be here. Amy was there. I'm not going to get into all the details of, what happened behind closed doors. That's why the doors were closed. But she did apologize to the caucus for her bad judgment. People accepted her apology, and we got on with the work of electing a new majority leader.
Did she tell you who the senior staffer was?
No.
Do you know who it is?
Even if I did, because of employment laws and privacy issues, I wouldn't be able to tell you.
So here's my main question for you. And there's a couple things, but one is you said, Chris, it's behind closed doors for a reason. I look at this and I go, wait a second, what just happened with Senator Koch was clearly behind closed doors. This is an opportunity for you guys to say, you know what, that was behind closed doors. We're not. You elected us here. Why not go above and beyond and be even more transparent? Why go behind closed doors?
Well, I'm relatively new to the political game, so I'm going to look at how the caucus positions work, the Democrats and Republicans. There's some personality issues. There's a lot of different reasons why I think you go behind closed doors, but there's strategy that comes out in these things. But let me finish. Let me finish. As far as what Senator Koch will or won't say in public, that will be up to Senator Koch. And as I've said multiple times to multiple people, some of the things that get talked about, if we knew about it and it comes into employment law situations and privacy issues, we wouldn't be able to talk about in public. That the truth will come out eventually, but that will have to be through the legal way of doing it. And so a lot of things we don't even know, because the more people that know, the more privacy that can be
But I mean, for example, today on my radio show, I had the new Senate Majority Leader Dave Senjum on, and he didn't even know the vote. He's like, Chris, I don't even know how many votes I won by. And I'm thinking to myself, this is an opportunity for you guys to build trust and say, look, we made a mistake, or Amy Koch did. This is a chance for us as a caucus to build trust. Here's what the vote was. Here's the open doors. We're transparent. These people elected you based on trust. Why not rebuild that?
That's a great comment, and I don't think it was one that the vote didn't seem as important, the number, as what I think you're making it seem like.
But then why not just reveal it if it's not that important?
Well, I may go back to the caucus and ask them that.
All right.
There were some in the caucus, and I would be one of them, that would like to know the number. At the time, you're sort of in the middle of it. I've said this before too, we're not players on a stage, we're human beings. And we're going to, make little missteps. But I do want to clarify one thing. Senator Koch made a decision, and it was her judgment, and it was bad judgment. Clearly, we will all agree on that. But I don't believe that should cast us all under that pall. And I think that Senator Koch will ultimately make all the right decisions going forward, understanding that the good work we did last year and what we have planned for next year shouldn't be diminished by some bad judgment on her part.
You kind of read my mind, because, again, I mentioned that these people elect you based on trust. And today there was a piece in the paper that said, okay, there we go, the Republicans' duplicity, the Republicans' hypocrisy. So here's my question. Is it time for Republicans to maybe take a step back from the social, marital issues and say, you know what, we're going to focus more on just fiscal issues?
I don't know that I agree with that so much, as I think that all the issues are important to many voters, not just Republicans or Democrats, but I think that as elected leaders, we are held to a higher standard. And I believe that I would I know what I would do if I were in Senator Koch's situation. I know what my constituents would ask me to do. And for us to just focus on fiscal issues, you know, I sit on the Health and Human Service Committee, and I see lots of social issues that are impacting our fiscal issues. So if we don't get our social house in order, we won't have our fiscal house in order, and we'll have this kind of runaway
But then
fiscal train.
Is it maybe a time for the Republicans to step back from more of the marriage issues and just say, okay, you know what? Obviously, there's hypocrisy in some areas. We got to clean that up. Because I think it's only going to bode well to the other side of the aisle, because this is not an aisle thing, an R and a D thing. This is a human thing.
Right.
And I think maybe it's a chance for the Republicans, again, to build more trust and go, look, we're going to step back from that conversation. As you know, there's the constitutional amendment coming up in Minnesota to ban gay marriage. Is it time maybe to take a step back from that and say, hey, we're going to focus on the fiscal issues that face Minnesota?
Well, first of all, it's not to ban gay marriage. It's to define marriage between a man and a woman. So that thing, and that is marriage, the family, is our base of our morality in the United States, which is also what made our country so great, that we had those family values, we had those family units. That is our basic system of government. So it's not a ban on gay marriage, and I actually resent that people try and paint it as that. So it is defining the marriage between a man and a woman.
Thank you for that clarity. Because there was the satirical piece, obviously, about Senator Koch, which went from the gay and lesbian community.
Of course, there always will be.
I think one of the key questions is, obviously, this is a hiccup. The other hiccup is the Minnesota GOP, the state party's $1 million in debt. What do you do to get back on track? You've got the next session coming up January 24th. What needs to happen in this new session to go, hey, we've got things back on track?
Well, I think, first of all, the Minnesota GOP is separate from the Senate caucus. We're two separate actual entities. The GOP is the political structure for Republicans. I believe that you'll see more transparency in the Minnesota GOP, and if people did things wrong, I think that they should pay that price. I think individuals make decisions, but I don't think we should paint the whole party or the whole Senate Republican caucus under the pall of a couple of people's bad decisions. And I believe I heard both sides of the story, and I'm satisfied that our leaders did the best they could in a horrible situation. I believe you'll see as much transparency as the law provides. I've been pretty clear how I feel about this, and I do agree that I think elected people are held to a bit higher standard. We want trust in our elected people, and I will say this often, it's no wonder when people get into office and they sort of lose their minds that people lose trust in our government, and many of us are working to restore that.
One of the things that I want to share with you is I just have a tremendous amount of admiration for you. You always speak from the heart, and I appreciate that, and thanks for being in the hot box. Stephanie, I think one of the things that's very clear is this is not an R and a D thing. This is not a male and a female thing. This is a human thing. You can take Bill Clinton, you know, John Edwards, obviously now with Senator Amy Koch. And my question to you, the viewer, is when people make a misstep in morality, for example, going out and cheating on their spouse, does that impact the next time you show up in a voting booth and change the way you're going to vote? And Stephanie, I would pose to you the same question. Does that impact how you're going to vote next time for that particular person?
Well, I think what I've been seeing a lot of people on Facebook and talking with, obviously, friends and family and everything, it's just a very, very sticky situation, especially with a different kind of person, that it might be a male or female, and that affects voting differently. And especially, it also affects it depends on what they did. You know, Chris, that's a lot of, some people might have different levels of ethically and morally.
In this particular circumstance, it's a female, Senator Amy Koch. Do you change, let's say she was going to be up for re-election, do you change your decision based on what happened?
I don't know yet. That is a tough question.
That's why there's the hot box.
No, absolutely, and I agree with you. And the one thing that I wonder, too, is, Chris, do you think this is going to change a different kind of voter, being that it's a female that this happened to, and it wasn't, or that did this alleged affair, versus a male politician? You know,
I don't think so. I think people right now are so fed up with politicians. Obviously, we talked about this earlier with Congressman Berg, that right now Congress is on an approval rate of like 9 to 11%. And I think that's why I shared with Gretchen, like, you're standing up in front of these constituents saying, hey, vote for me, you can trust me. And then when that trust is broken, I think people are tired of that. They're looking for that George Washington guy that's going to stand by his principles. We all know the last line in our nation's birth certificate: our lives, our sacred honor, and our fortunes. And we need more people that are willing to step up and say, hey, you know what? Times are tough, but I'm willing to make this kind of commitment and sacrifice.
Absolutely, Chris. It is something that I know I'll be thinking about in the weeks and months to come, as well as you. But it's a great conversation, and thanks so much for joining us today, Chris. Well, it's not too late for your voice to be heard on this topic. You can chat with us live right now at 630pov.com. You can tweet us, or you can go to our Valley News Live Facebook page. Coming up, who said you can't play bumper cars in real life? One guy decides he wants to smash his way all the way through town, hitting anything and everything in his path.